Speaking of cool, it's getting chilly. Let's pick up the pace.
Tori!
Look, if you're expecting some righteous indignation about me hating Kotori, I hate to tell ya that I don't hate the character. Even when I watched the English dub, the character wasn't all that annoying. Hell, I'd argue that she had her brighter points, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Kotori Mizuki, or Tori Meadows, is the main character's, Yuma, childhood friend and love interest. She's also essentially a glorified cheerleader, quite literally in some cases.
This is not my look.
A few moments later.
Fight on, Yuma! After all, you have us to cheer you on! Rah, rah!
There isn't really anything for me to complain about when it comes to arcs and character development for her because she doesn't go through anything really. She's literally the one who helps Yuma and Astral by cheering them on, pepping them up, and honestly gets a ton of screen time that may or not be on par with the main character himself. Now that's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you don't have to worry about Kotori being given a good arc and then not given anything afterwards, so you're nothing more than a stage prop, like what they did to Aki Izayoi. But the flip side of that is you essentially have one role, and by God, you're gonna be sticking to that one role. And that's going to be support for the main character, and only that. Going back to Yu-Gi-Oh GX, the writers really didn't know what to do with Asuka other than strong female duelist. And it shows. And it'll show again. But yeah, Kotori isn't that much of a duelist. She only has like one actual duel in the entire series. And she's brainwashed. Along with another character that I'll talk in a little, she loses the duel and that's really it. There's not much to say about her, and that's probably one of my biggest criticisms about the character. There's nothing to her. She's unremarkable.
Whoa, check it out, Yuma. It's an airship. That shit's flying high to commemorate the World Duel Carnival.
Well, I guess there's one thing I can criticize about Kotori, although it's more to the show than anything else. Fan service. Now, I know what you're thinking, so give me a minute to lay the groundwork before you start flaming me in the comments. I do not have a problem with fan service. Most of the time. Hell, one of the shows I'm currently watching at the time of you writing this section of the script, which I may remind you was in 2022, Futo PI, a Kamen Rider W anime sequel to the original series, has a ton of fan service with a lot of curvy ladies. Even a couple of gratuitous themes of over-the-top sexualization for the female characters. Now, we can have a conversation on whether or not fan service in and of itself is harmless or harmful. But I think a point of agreement is that as long as the fan service is tasteful and doesn't do anything creepy, then I'm sure it's not a problem. Guess what Zexal does?
When you see something, say something. Report that groomer when he comes for you.
Yes, my friends. The Yu-Gi-Oh show that talks about early teenagers has fan service scenes. You only need to look at Kotoris and the other female characters who wear school uniforms to see that there's already an issue. And I thought Duel Academy's uniforms were somewhat skimpy for the girls. Who the hell designed this skirt length for a 13-year-old? Oh, and that's not the only aspect of fan service. Now, because I don't want the FBI to come knocking down my door, I won't be showing any of this. So you just have to trust me on this. But I'll give you guys a small list of what the fan service scenes are for a 13-year-old girl. 1. Kotori jumping in a short skirt, quite a few number of times. 2. Kotori in a suggestive pose in a tight outfit with tomatoes. Yes, I know, that's weird, but it happened. Number 3. Kotori doing suggestive posing, playing a duel puzzle that has elements to similar to that of a game of Twister. Still in a skirt. 4. There's a lot of low-angle shots of Kotori showing her legs in the tiny skirt. Need I say more? And probably the worst, Kotori in a towel after being in the shower and the tower slightly slipping away before cutting away for anything is seen. God, someone rip out my eyes already, please. Look, you can say Kotori provides a lot of moral support to Yuma, and hell, even in the manga she goes to such lengths to cheer up Yuma by trying to duel him, despite not knowing how to duel, and even jumping from an aircraft to save Yuma from a drowning. And that's great, but the fan service really knocks her down from being a passable character and into one that is just creepy to even think about, cause, again, 13 fucking years old. Another complaint was that there was a lot of times where Kotori was basically turned into a damsel in distress. Now, I feel like I need to have a discussion on the damsel in distress trope, because the moment someone levies that criticism, that just raises the dander of some people who are burned by Anita Sarkeesian. I've talked about the trope in and of itself, even giving its few dedicated videos, but if you're not interested in a full-length video on the matter, here's my TLDR. In my humble opinion, there's nothing wrong with the damsel in distress trope. The issue stems from the execution of the trope and how often it's used, and for the latter part, to me, it's more dependent on how often it's used, not the overall media, but each specific media. For example, example, I think the trope is overused in the Mario franchise, but if you look towards Persona 4, I feel the trope is subverted in the game by the female party members to certain capacities. I feel that the criticism that the trope is used too much for Kotori is actually acceptable here, especially when she's used as leverage against Yuma multiple times throughout the series. But you know what's the most salt in this wound? It's that she's the first Yu-Gi-Oh girl to actually fully confess her love to the protagonist.
Just wanted you to know that I'm gaga over you!
Which, you know, you go, girl! Go get that lobster-haired freak. It's not a strike against her, but it just feels like a kick to the teeth of the girls who actually had more prominence and more active roles in the story that get the shaft to not confess their love to the protags who actually did do a lot for them in their stories. So, Kotori, aside from the creepy fan service, isn't actually a bad character. Just not one I would really consider all that enthralling or interesting at the end of the day. She still isn't the worst written lady in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just that there's a lot of baggage that comes with her as a character, and that she's got the personality that evolves like a rock. Again, Kotori's role is meant to be support from the main character, Yuma. Hell, one time she gave Yuma food during a duel and was actually helping him to win. Kotori is a cheerleader, and with that role, it comes with a lot of baggage that I don't blame a lot of people of disliking.